Hi everybody. Another classic dude video. I would just like to point out though that to anybody that has an issue, I've never ever asked anybody to like a video, subscribe. That's not what I'm here for. I've never ever asked anybody to do that. So first of all, I want to make that quite crystal clear. And if comments are posted that are personal, they will be deleted. We're not here to get personal about one another. So that's just a standard thing, you know. If you're getting personal and calling people names and attacking them, you know, chances are you've already lost the argument because you've resorted to that kind of name calling. Had one person last night using offensive terms in a message. You know, it really doesn't do you any credit at all. Anyway, we're here. One thing only, and that's to talk about Steve and Brendan and other wrongfully convicted people throughout the world. And so this is a bit of classic Erekose. I love sharing his videos. His family appreciate the fact that his legacy continues, as do people close to him. So here we go. Here's another. This was from the 14th of August. 14th of August. Get that right. 14th of August, 2017. To those who believe Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey are guilty, let's just click on play. He's not yet in the TARDIS. He was there for the.
Hello everybody, you have tuned in to Erekose on Making a Murderer on YouTube. I cover virtually any aspect of making a murderer. I go over the evidence, the documents, the photos. So if you like, stay tuned, and in the future I'll have many more videos besides the one you're about to see. Hello folks, we're here today doing a little video because recently I've had quite a few commenters on my channel, people that believe that Stephen and Brendan are guilty, saying things that I just felt it was easier to respond with a video to explain all the many reasons why I believe Brendan was coerced, or all the many reasons why I believe that Stephen was wrongfully convicted. So to just answer all of it with one video where I'm going to put all this information in one spot, where I can then share this link whenever I'm getting somebody on my channel who's minimizing my argument in a way that you're going to see in the first comment I'm going to show you here today. I'm going to show you a screenshot of a comment that I got recently. Not going to show you who it's from, but I'm just going to show you the comment and how it minimizes the reason why I believe Brendan was coerced. It's going to show you exactly how this person is basically not at all acknowledging all the various other reasons why it seems like Brendan was very much set up for coercion. It just very much minimizes and really doesn't even acknowledge my argument or arguments as to why it seems so obvious that Brendan was coerced and had nothing to do with it. So we're going to see that at first, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about some other things. We're going to talk about other things with the case, reasons why a certain department had lost all credibility and at this point cannot say, oh, well, you know, we're the law enforcement, it's tough. No, you already screwed up once, willfully, you know. But anyways, willfully and ignorantly. Since, I mean, unbelievably, really. Because at this point, and I say ignorantly because to this day, most of the officers involved with that original case in 1985 still believe that Stephen actually raped Penny Burnson on the beach. It's unbelievable, but they do. There's proof of it on Dr. Phil when he when he talks to Ken Peterson. So we're also going to talk about other things here. We're going to talk about, you know, the RAV4, how the blood and what's so suspicious about the evidence with the RAV4. We're going to talk about the bones and what's very odd and suspicious about the bones. We're going to talk about the key and the cabinet and the fantasy. We're going to talk about those things and all these things and how they add up and how they led up to the fact that they needed to basically bully Brendan into getting a confession out of him, so that, number one, he was no longer an alibi witness for Stephen, but was now suddenly a potentially incriminating witness for Stephen. So it was just a way of them bullying this young 16-year-old kid so that they could basically make it an airtight case on Stephen, because they knew the evidence wasn't coming up to support the narrative that Stephen had done this. They weren't finding any traces of Teresa anywhere on the salvage yard except for inside of the RAV4. That was a problem. That was a big problem. And then I'm going to play some clips for you from the March 1st interview. One in particular where I believe that Tom Fassbender may be betraying himself a little bit and alluding to the fact that he knows that they're going to find a bullet in there with Teresa's DNA on it. I mean, I'm not sure what he could be referring to, but I'm going to play the clip for you. You're going to hear. I've played it before, but I'm going to put it here again for you today. You're going to be able to hear that. So we're going to go over a very, very broad and comprehensive scope of reasoning as to why I believe that Brendan was coerced, and all of the factors that lead up to it, not just the minimizing that you're going to see in the first screenshot I'm going to share with you today. So we'll get on with it. So this is the comment that got me wanting to do this video. It was, you know, it just completely minimizes any, I mean, for all of us that believe that Brendan is innocent, this comment is just belittles, you know, all of us. It's not taking into account many of the points that we all consider when we reason that Brendan was coerced. This is just basically like trying to attack me, and that's fine. I don't mind. Everybody's allowed to comment on my channel. I don't censor anybody. So here it comes. But I'm just making this video to be able to easily respond to people like this in the future. If Erekose was detective in this case, this is what he would do. Erekose asked Brendan, "Hi, Brendan. Sorry to trouble you, but did you see Teresa Hallback on Halloween night?" Brendan, "No." Erekose asks, "Thank you for that valuable information, Brendan. And did you happen to see your uncle Stephen Avery that night?" Brendan responds, "No." Erekose asks, "Thank you very much for your insight. But did you have a bonfire on Halloween night?" Brendan answers, "No." Erekose then says, "Thank you very much for answering these difficult questions. Here's a soda and a sandwich. Now, can I drive you back to school for your project?" Now, first off, the reason why the going back to school for the project thing is important, addressing the person who made this comment, is because it proves that Brendan did not understand what was going on and thought he was going back to school after all of that. Because he is so highly suggestible and he did not understand what was happening. That's why the driving back to school thing is important. But, you know, I get it. Whoever, the person that made this comment, you know, you're getting your little jollies on this little comment, and that's fine, but you've completely minimized the argument about why it looks like Brendan was completely coerced. But that's okay, because I'm going to go ahead and correct that now, and I'm going to talk about all of those things involved with this case that lead up to Brendan's confession that make it look all the more suspect than it does on its own by watching it. Now, I will say this particular commenter is actually one of the commenters that believes that the guys are guilty, that Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey are guilty, that I actually enjoy more than others. This particular commenter doesn't use foul language and doesn't try to deride or call other people names on the thread or in the comments. This person actually acts like a human being who acts with, you know, respect and stuff like that. So I've always particularly enjoyed this particular commenter, even though I don't agree with them. However, when I saw this, I just went, "Oh wow, really? You're just gonna just, you know, disrespect me like that?" So this video is now going to be the answer to this belittling of my stance when it comes to Brendan, because Brendan needs all of his supporters out there talking about why his confession was BS. You know, he needs everybody out there pointing it out, and so this just gives me a prime opportunity to do it yet again. So we're now going to move into the fact that you can't tell me that there's no possible prejudice against Stephen Avery and his family and stuff there, because we already know with the 1985 case that Manitowoc pretty much willfully and knowingly went after Stephen for this crime, even though the facts didn't fit. They just continued to pursue the prosecution with him because that's who they wanted to go down for it. Didn't matter to them who actually did it, and that person might go on to hurt others. That didn't matter. They just wanted Stephen Avery for it. So that shows a mentality, that shows a bit of a mechanism in place at that department where something like that on that kind of scale can happen. It makes the whole entire department suspect. Okay? The entire department becomes suspect because of what they did to Stephen Avery in 1985. But did it stay in 1985? No. No, it didn't stay in 1985. Because there were other departments that were finding Gregory Allen, arresting him. He was talking to them. And so in 1995, Brown County Police Department, I believe it is, calls the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department to inform them that they have a suspect who's telling them they have the wrong man in prison for a crime he committed in Manitowoc. You know, basically talking about the rape and attempted murder of Penny Bernston. And basically Colburn says he handed it off to a detective, or he just, or routed the call to a detective, and then that's all he ever heard of it. But then, 8 years later, in 2003, Colburn writes a statement about this call that he received in 1995. Right? Proving that, number one, he got the communication from Brown County. Proving that he remembered it. It's not like it was fleeting and he, forgot about it immediately. No, he got he actually received the call, and then he actually retained the information in his memory for 8 years, enough to write a statement in 2003, the day after Stephen Avery was exonerated for the crime. Okay? That shows that there was some kind of will in place there. Colburn knew who Stephen Avery was. He knew when that call came in, he knew what it was referring to. And 8 years later, the day after Stephen Avery was released, he made a statement. He wrote a statement about it. I mean, so that just shows you more fishiness. But then, you want to know why this even looks more and more fishy, and why it puts that whole area under suspect, basically making that whole entire area suspect, is that you then have the then AG at the time, in 2003, 4, whatever it was, who then signs off and says, no, there was no misconduct. This was about communication issues and breakdowns between law enforcement agencies. Are you kidding? Colburn got the communication. Colburn remembered the communication. He just sat on it for 8 years because he didn't want to do any. Obviously, there was some reason why they weren't willing to do anything with that particular piece of information. But he clearly got it. He remembered it for 8 years. Peterson says that he remembers hearing about it when the call came in, when he was on Dr. Phil. So there was some knowledge that this call came in, and they all seemed to have an idea that it was about Stephen Avery. Okay? And here we get the Attorney General, Peg Lautenschlager, at the time, who says, oh no, there was no wrongdoing here. It was just poor communication between agencies. Wait a second. If there was such poor communications, how did Vogel, the Manitowoc County DA end up with a file of Gregory Allen in the Stephen Avery file? How do you end up with an envelope about Gregory Allen in there? If nobody was communicating and nobody was suspecting Gregory Allen, how does this stuff show up in the places that it shows up? It shows a pretty widespread net of people that are willing to help each other cover their ass. Okay? And so when you see that, when you see it was there then, you see that it still came forward into the 2000s, into 2003, and then you see the whole Teresa Halbach thing that starts in 2005, and you look at this evidence, and you look at the things with this case, which we're going to talk about. So, that's my spiel about the fact that you cannot trust the law enforcement in the area, because the law enforcement in the area has, number one, bungled, has willfully, wrongfully convicted a man, and has, number three, had no remorse for it. And you have basically at the state level, the Attorney General that covered up, that basically signed off that there was no wrongdoing when there absolutely was. So with all these things combined, no, I cannot just blindly listen to whatever law enforcement says happened in this case, because it doesn't wash. When you look at the facts, there are improprieties between what the narrative of the story is and what the actual evidence is. And so much of the evidence is suspect in the way that it was found and everything. There's just so much things that cause one to question in this case. You can't have that many reasons causing question without it. It doesn't happen by accident. It shows that something was going on behind the scenes that caused all of these strange questions to come up. And basically what that seam is, what that thread is that explains all these odd anomalies, is that somebody was trying to influence the case so that they could get a conviction against Stephen Avery and not investigate the evidence and who it really pointed at. That's my own opinion. But we'll move on next into the blood in the RAV4 and the finding of the RAV4. Okay, so we've well established now that there is a clear mechanism, whatever you want to say. There is, a tendency in this area, this law enforcement, for them to willfully, wrongfully convict a man for a crime he didn't commit. It's there. It's right there. You can't deny it. It stretched all the way from 85 into 2003. So, I mean, you can't say it was gone. You can't say that there's absolutely, no chance that kind of thing was still there, because that's ridiculous to say. Because, like I said, we know that the communication was fine. Colburn got the communication. I'm not going to say it anymore. Peg Lautenschlager saying communication was ridiculous. So that framework for that sort of behavior is there. Now, we're going to talk about the RAV4. As you know, I have another video about the RAV4 and what I think is very suspicious and strange about the blood in the RAV4. You can watch that. In addition to that, there's also the fact that there's fingerprints on the RAV4 that don't belong to Stephen Avery, that they don't know who those fingerprints belong to. And then you add to that they didn't find any evidence in the trailer of Teresa. None. Of Brendan Dassey either. No evidence. With this supposed scene that was going on there. No evidence there. No evidence of Teresa anywhere. Nowhere anywhere on the salvage yard. Nowhere in the garage at all until March 1st. They find her miraculously on the bullet. This miraculous bullet that's not dusty like everything else in there. But anyways, so they're not finding the evidence to support what they believe and what they've charged Stephen with. So it gets going. Eventually you get to March 1st. Well, you get to February 27th, and then that's when Wiegert and Fassbender start targeting Brendan. Brendan is Stephen's alibi at the time. And that's how he was going to testify at Stephen's trial. But by doing this, right? Let's go back a bit. Let's talk about the bones that they found on the property. The only other trace of Teresa that they found on the property. Well, they only found like 60% of them in Stephen's burn pit in one tooth. Only one of many teeth. This completely suggests that those bones were moved to the burn pit, that they did not start there. Because if they started there, when they were sifting, they would have found a lot more teeth than that, and they would have found a larger percentage of the bones. You couple that with the fact that they found what looked like a femur over in the Redant burn pile, and they found bones in Barb's burn barrel. So it's pretty obvious that those bones moved. It's not where they started. So that makes those suspects. So you're still back to the fact that you have nothing solid tying Teresa to the Avery salvage yard. All you have is evidence of her inside of her vehicle, which has wheels on it and can be rolled anywhere. Okay? So you're running into this problem of, oh wait, we can't place Teresa anywhere on the salvage yard. We can't place her in the trailer. We didn't find any trace of her in the garage. Even though we jackhammered up that crack, we didn't find any trace of her. So they're in a bind because they feel like it's going to be hard for them to convince a jury that Stephen did this when they can't prove that Teresa Hallback was anywhere on the salvage yard except in her own vehicle. So this is a problem. So what does this all lead to? This all leads to them going, okay, we're gonna go after Brendan. He's very suggestible. We'll get him to confess, and then that will take him away as Stephen's alibi witness, and we'll make him a potentially incriminating witness against Stephen, and that will pretty much solidify the case for them against Stephen. Because trust me, once Kratz puts the details of that confession, which is ridiculous and unbelievable to begin with, once he puts those out in the public, there was no way they were going to get a jury that would actually look at this case fairly, because they were all given a very gruesome and unsubstantiated story from Ken Kratz when they shouldn't have been. Brendan Dassey's confession, if you watch it, is ridiculous. I'm going to show you a few things here today. One thing we're going to show you is, if you remember on Dr. Oz, Fassbender was talking about his control question. He was asking Brendan if Teresa had a particular tattoo somewhere on her body, because it was supposed to like test if Brendan was telling them the truth or not, or if he was just saying what they wanted. So he basically tells Brendan, do you remember this tattoo in such and such a place? Well, it wasn't actually there. She didn't actually have a tattoo like he said, where, and everything. Initially, in the part they play in Dr. Oz, on the Dr. Oz show, you hear Brendan say, no. And then they stop it. I'm going to play you the clip right now. I'm going to play you the clip right now so that you can see for yourself just exactly how suggestible Brendan is. He basically says no at first, but then changes his mind because he's trying to please them and says, oh yeah, well maybe. That's the kind of suggestible Brendan is. And that's what we're going to see right now. Okay, so this is where Fassbender asks his control question, and it goes wrong, in my opinion.
We know that Teresa had a tattoo on her stomach. Do you remember that? Do you disagree with me when I say that?
No, but I don't know what it was.
Okay, so that's their control question. Their control question was basically making up the fact that Teresa had a tattoo on her stomach. Okay? They're saying, okay, do you know she had a tattoo on her stomach? And Brendan says, Okay? Basically saying no, which is what they wanted. Because that makes that makes what he's been saying seem more credible because he answered that question correctly. But he didn't really, did he? Because almost immediately after saying, Fassbender says, oh, do you disagree with me on that? And Brendan says, no, but I just don't remember what it was. So basically willing to go along with the fact that she had one, he just didn't know what it was. And that kind of goes against the fact that he wasn't being suggestible, because that pretty much shows him flip-flopping on his answer within 5 seconds. He's, within 5 to 10 seconds, he's flip-flopped on his original answer. So I don't know how that can really be a control question when he didn't give a clear definitive answer. He gave basically 2 opposing answers. So anyways, now we're going to move into the next point. The next point is something that Fassbender says during the interrogation, and this kind of goes to serve the point of like what Judge Rovner and Williams were talking about in their decision to grant Brendan his writ of habeas corpus, where they're talking about the fact that the interrogation of Brendan, or the interview, these investigators were very, very intent upon pushing the narrative out to the garage and having Brendan say things happened out in the garage. And it's very clear that they are very consistently pushing the narrative in that way, and pushing Brendan to say more and more about the garage and give them more about the garage, and they know there's more out there. So here's one of those comments right now that you're going to see that is just, to my mind, it seems to me like Tom Fassbender expects to find a bullet, or he expects to find something bearing Teresa's, mark, her DNA somehow. It's like he's expecting to find it, the way he says it here. And I'm going to show you now. I'm going to put it on right now. Here we go.
You sure that she wasn't taken out to the garage alive and some of this stuff was done to her out there?
No.
Hanging from a rafter or anything like that?
Mm-mm.
The worst is over. You're not going to shock us or anything by telling us if that happened. Because I just have a feeling that something may be there.
So, something, pause, it may be there. Now, is it definitive? Obviously not definitive, but it still goes, number one, it's still trying to get Brendan to push things and say things happened in the garage. But that's an interesting statement to make. That he feels, he feels that there's something, it may be there. Yeah? I mean, that sounds to me like he expected to find the bullet. It really does. Obviously not definitive proof, but it sounds very, very odd to me. Added to the fact that he tries to represent that flip-flopping on the control question as proof that Brendan wasn't suggestible. Ridiculous. Okay, then you add to that other things. I mean, I already talked about the bones, only 60% of them, blah, 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 blah. The key in the cabinet, there's no way in hell that key was missed until the 8th day and was found by Lincoln Colburn. Okay, I mean, seriously, and all Colburn did was just shake the cabinet a bit, but didn't disturb any of the things that were on top of it, like the change and various things like that. But somehow the key just came tumbling out, fell about 3 inches to the side and about an inch or an inch and a half forward of the back of the cabinet somehow. So, yeah. Anyway, I have a video about the cabinet. I'll post it in the information below this video as well. But I did an experiment with the cabinet that was pretty much approximately the same as Stephen Avery's, that where they claimed that this key was hidden at. So I proved that there is no secret entrance to Narnia. But anyways, so, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I feel like they weren't getting the evidence they needed, and they needed to coerce the confession out of Brendan, because they, number one, needed to take him away as one of Stephen's alibis, and number two, use his confession to, well, get back in to the garage, find this bullet mysteriously there that didn't have any dust on it like everything around it did, and to swab the hood latch. But if we now look at what's going on now, it looks like that hood latch swab most likely got switched with one of the what they call a test swab from Stephen himself. It was a groin swab, and that it had such a bountiful amount of DNA on it compared to what they were getting from the hood latch experiments they were doing. Anyways, I have other video about the hood latch experiments and why they basically believe that the hood latch swab was relabeled as a different swab, and a swab that was taken from Stephen Avery's groin was relabeled as the hood latch swab. Anyways, I have a video and I'll put it below. So there's all these various reasons that all of them come together as they manifest more and more reasons why these facts in this case, the narrative in this case, is suspect. So that's what it all comes down to. It's that bigger picture that it comes down to here that makes me think that Brendan Dassey was coerced and he deserves to be free. Hands down. So that's about it for this video. Be looking forward to my video coming out soon about the March 1st interrogation, and we'll see you later. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe.
Well, there we go. That was very much the might need to put some lighting on here. Let's do a little bit. Lights, see if that will help. No, I seem to be in a fog. Just bear with me 2 seconds. It's suddenly gone a bit darker outside. Apologies for that. As you noticed, that was the, if you like, the birth, for want of a better word, of the dude's interest in the control question, sharing it for the first time. Very interesting, very interesting stuff. The girls that posted the question about, Detective Erekose, what Detective Erekose would have said and accepted, somewhat humorous. I think the dude would have quite liked that kind of banter, from a sort of humorous point of view, but from a serious point of view, completely off the mark. Anyway, that's I think that will do fine for today. So catch you all again soon. Take care. Till next time. Bye for now.